So UFC Fight Night Vegas 86 Hermansson versus Pyfer takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card from start to finish, giving my prediction and breakdown of these fights. Now, before I dive into this, I want to announce that I have a topology group, so if you want to keep track of my picks or even compare your picks to mine, you can submit your own picks in my topology group and compete against other people a part of my community. So if you are interested in that, link is in the description down below. Click that, check that out for me, and I appreciate you if you do join the group. But let's get into these full card predictions that I have. But starting out with the early prelim opener, we have Daniel Marcos versus Aoriquileng, the Mongolian murderer. Can I say that on YouTube? It's his nickname, so don't hold me too hard to that. That's simply just his nickname. But this fight is an interesting fight. I don't really like Aoriquileng at all. He just seems like he's dangerous. He has a good power punch, but that's really about it. That's all he has in his back pocket. Whereas Daniel Marcos, he fought Davy Grant, and I think Davy Grant is actually a really good fighter. Now, is Davy Grant like this epitome top 15 guy? Is he going to be something in the UFC? Hell no. But Daniel Marcos was able to stay safe and I guess kind of outpoint Davy Grant. I think he lost that fight, if I'm being honest with you, but looking good against Davy Grant is leagues above whatever Aoriquileng has done in his UFC career so far. So I'm taking Daniel Marcos. He doesn't have a ton of power in his hands either. I don't see a finish really happening. Maybe he can probably get a body shot or maybe by leg kick finish, Daniel Marcos can get this one done, but I just don't see him being able to finish Aoriquileng. So I'm going to take Daniel Marcos by decision. But we move on to the next fight, and that is Hyder Amil versus Fernie Garcia. Now, I went back, actually, I originally watched Hyder Amil's Contender Series fight against Emrah Sanmez, and he didn't look too impressive to me, but what he did show was a ton of grit. He was not willing to be on bottom position because I think Sanmez was shooting takedowns on him. So he is a very gritty guy, and like he has the effort and the workhorse inside of him to try to push for a win in a fight. And so I think Hyder Amil just has what it takes to beat a guy like Fernie Garcia, who is dog shit. He's not really that good at all. Honestly, he doesn't really have much to offer. He came into the UFC, I think, hyped up on his boxing skill, but his boxing skill just looked very mid against Journey Newsome. Like, he didn't look good at all. And Fernie Garcia, just to me, he shouldn't even be in the UFC, if I'm being honest with you. And Hyder Amil, even though he's not really that talented and he's a really big underdog in this, I don't really know how Fernie Garcia really beats him, if I'm being honest with you. I think Hyder Amil will be able to take the boxing combinations from Fernie Garcia and be able to push forward and eventually probably outpointing him in the last 2 rounds. I really don't know. I really feel like both of these guys don't deserve to be in the UFC. But, I mean, Hyder Amil did win his Contender Series fight, so I guess he earned his spot in the UFC. But if I'm looking at this objectively in terms of skill level, I don't believe either of these guys are UFC level. But I do think Hyder Amil, even though he might not be as talented as Fernie Garcia, which is not saying much at all, I think Hyder Amil just He wants to be here. He wants to make some money. And I think Fernie Garcia believes that as well. But I think just that Hyder Amil, like, I feel like his fight IQ is probably a bit higher than Fernie Garcia. And I think that will carry him into a win against him. I'm going Hyder Amil by decision, fucking 29-28. It's going to be a lame card, let's be honest here. These aren't really the most interesting matchups. But again, we move on up the card to Zach Puaga versus Bogdan Guskov. I don't think Zach Puaga is really any good. I mean, he beat Jordan Wright by decision, which is not a good win in its own right, but it's even worse the fact that he beat him by decision. If you beat Jordan Wright, you're supposed to KO this dude. You're supposed to put him down and TKO him on the ground. You're supposed to finish him. And Zach Puaga couldn't even do that. And he lost to Muhammad Usman by KO. And if you ever watch Muhammad Usman striking, that shit is awful. That shit is, oh my God. Like, he is a grappler at heart. Muhammad Usman cannot fucking strike to save his life. And if you get KO'd by him, your chin is suspect. Like, I don't know. Maybe he has some power. But, like, your striking ability is not anything to be accredited for because you got KO'd by Muhammad Usman. So I can't really sit here and be like, oh, Zach Puaga is going to beat Bogdan Guskov, who, I mean, he fought Volkan Ozdemir in his debut. That's a tough fight, man. That's a really tough fight to get on your debut. And he lost, obviously. He got hurt a couple times against Ozdemir. But Bogdan Guskov, I think he has, I don't know what it is exactly, but he does have some awards in boxing. You know, I think he has a Golden Glove in boxing, so that tells you something. And if that is true, he should be able to beat Zach Puaga, who again got KO'd by Muhammad Usman. So yeah, I really don't know how Bogdan Guskov loses this, because I mean, if he does have this really high credentials in boxing and he gets outpointed by Zach Puaga, then that whole award means absolutely nothing. And the UFC is rigged, and Golden Gloves or whatever award he got in boxing, that means absolutely nothing. So I think Bogdan Guskov should be able to put it on Zach Puaga. I'll take him by first round KO. If he does actually have good boxing like he's supposed to have, then I think he should be able to chin Zach Puaga in the first round. But the UFC is weird and unpredictable, and things don't make sense all the time. But I know another not a high profile fight on the card. But moving on up the card again, we have Jeremiah Wells versus Max Griffin. Now, both of these guys are pretty old. Jeremiah Wells being 37 and Max Griffin being 38. So not the youngest guys in the room or on the roster here. But we have Jeremiah Wells should win this one pretty easily, right? I think he is better than Max Griffin. Max Griffin has better hands, in my opinion, but it's just the fact that I think that Jeremiah Wells is just more physical. He's more dominant in terms of his grappling ability. And I think Max Griffin, like, he did have success against Michael Morales, who doesn't seem like he is the best prospect in the UFC, but he is undefeated. He does have a really good record. He's, what, 15-0 right now, Michael Morales is. So it's not a bad loss in the UFC, but I just don't know how he defends takedowns from Jeremiah Wells, who is a freak of an athlete, let's be honest here. And I mean, Jeremiah Wells was on his way to get a win over Carlston Harris before he got Darce choked at the end of the third round. So, I mean, Jeremiah Wells overall is just a more talented and more athletic fighter than Max Griffin, who is kind of showing his age at this point in his career. At this point, Max Griffin is just an old man with some good boxing, but I don't think it's going to be able to carry him against Jeremiah Wells, who will be the one pushing forward, who will be the one throwing more combinations, who will be the one going for takedowns, double legs. He has a freakishly good double leg, Jeremiah Wells does, so I can see him getting down Max Griffin a couple times and just holding him there for a little bit. So Jeremiah Wells by decision via grappling, whatever, 29-28. He might lose a round. He might lose the first round or maybe the third round or something like that. I don't know. Jeremiah Wells wins this by decision. But moving on up the card, again, we have Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. Dude, these fights are just kind of lame, aren't they? Do we really even care about these, if I'm being honest? I'm taking Devin Clark. Do you want me to explain this? Do you really care if I explain how this fight's going to go? Like, do you want me to explain this so you can put it in your parlay? I don't really understand. Like, these fights are just, they don't really scream like, oh my God, I can't wait for this fight. You know, they just scream boringness. I don't know. Devin Clark wins. Grappling, he's, you know, very physical. Marcin Prachnio is, he lost to Vitor Petrino. And Vitor Petrino, to me, is pretty lame. But he is undefeated, a prospect in the UFC. I don't know. Prachnio also beat William Knight. If you don't remember that fight was probably one of the worst performances in UFC history, I believe that was. So, just leg kick mania. Devin Clark, I guess, clinch. It's going to be a clinch fest, bro. Let's be honest here. An absolute clinch fest. No, nobody cares, I guess. Devin Clark decision, clinch, yeah. Whatever, up the card. Looma Lookboonme versus Bruna Brasil. Looma Lookboonme, she has a bunch of talent. She actually looks like a decent women's fighter. I think she is pretty decent. She lost to Lupita Godinez 2 years ago. And that's really about it. I mean, after that, I mean, her wins aren't really the best right now. Like, she beat Elise Reed, who I think is cut from the UFC. She beat Denise Gomez, who I believe is also cut from the UFC. Maybe not. Probably not. I don't think so. But her wins aren't like the most like eye-popping wins you've ever seen. But she looks like she actually has talent, like she actually has skill. And the only issue about Looma Lookboonme is that she's incredibly small. She's 5'1" with a 61.5-inch reach compared to Bruna Brasil's 5'6" in height and 65.5-inch reach, but this is women's MMA, and I think Lookboonme is going to beat her on talent alone. I don't see her getting a finish, so another decision, I guess. I think I've picked almost all these fights by decision, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. I don't really know, like, there isn't, I just slammed my mouse. There really isn't much to really go off of here, but yeah, Lookboonme probably wins by decision. She actually has some decent talent in her. She's just undersized. That's really about it. But she trains at Tiger Muay Thai, I believe she does. And that gym is a great gym. I think they're going to be able to develop her very nicely and get her prepared for this fight. And I think she'll be able to out-physical Bruna Brasil pretty easily, even though she is smaller than her. So Lookboonme by decision. She might get a finish. She might get a TKO maybe, but I'm not willing to bet on it, if I'm being honest with you. Moving on up the card, Timothy Cuamba versus Bolaji Oki. Now, Timothy Cuamba is coming in on like a week's notice here, maybe if that, maybe less than that. He fought 4 days ago, so that means he fought like Monday, Sunday, something like that. He's coming in on incredibly short notice to fight Bolaji Oki, who is a really good fighter. I think he actually has potential here. Like, if you go back and you watch his Contender Series fight versus Dylan Salvador, he has good body shots. He has decent striking. Is he amazing? No. But is he good? I think so. Can he be something in the UFC? I don't know. But to me, it looks like Bolaji Oki is a prospect waiting to happen, whereas Timothy Cuamba, you know, like, he just looks like he's in good shape, but he's a former featherweight moving up to 155. Yeah, he might be undersized against Bolaji Oki, who has power in the hands, good body shots, good striking. I don't see how Timothy Cuamba really gets this one done on a short notice. There's just no way, in my opinion. If somehow Cuamba pulls this off and I'm wrong, this sport is rigged and it's stupid, because I know damn well the UFC is rooting for Oki to win because he's from Belgium, but I think he's Nigerian. So they want to get him probably on an African card down the line. So they probably want him to win so that he can be something in the UFC later down the line. But he's bigger, stronger, better striking. Cuamba can grapple a little bit, but I think Oki will be able to neutralize that with his size advantage. Oki should win this one, I think, pretty clearly by first round KO. Dude's a beast. He should be able to beat a short notice Timothy Cuamba. But moving on up the card, we have Trevin Giles versus Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates, probably like first round KO. This guy is on a massive KO streak, bro. I think his last 5 fights have been by finish, and Trevin Giles is not known for having a really solid chin. He got KO'd by DDP, by like a right hand. Now, this can be tricky because Trevin Giles is I think in terms of technical ability, Trevin Giles is pretty good, but I'm just worried about that chin. And I think a guy who's on a massive KO streak right now is going to have a lot of confidence coming into this, going to be super hyped up, going to be probably switched on because he only fought 5 months ago in the Contender Series. This is his UFC debut. He might have some jitters, but I think that might help him out in the adrenaline rush. He might go out there and just land one good right hand on Trevin Giles' chin and put him down. Trevin Giles is good. Like, I don't think he's bad at all, but he has a 4-inch reach disadvantage against Carlos Prates. So I can really just see Trevin Giles getting chinned here. I'm taking Carlos Prates by first round KO, maybe second round. I don't know. This card is so fucking weird, man. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be a good boy here, but it's hard to be a good boy right now when this card is less than stellar, if I'm being honest with you. It's really less than stellar. But moving on up the card, we have Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. I'm taking Armen Petrosyan here. They're near evens on odds, but Petrosyan is good. Like, he does lack a little bit in the takedown defense, but in terms of striking ability, he is one of the best in the UFC. He was able to beat Chris Duncan pretty convincingly on the feet. Like, he is a decent fighter. Like, is he ranked level? No, but he's damn near close to it. And Rodolfo Vieira is, again, 34 years of age. He is showing his age a little bit. He has great jiu-jitsu, but his takedowns aren't the best. Like, his takedowns aren't the most great in the world that I've ever seen, and I don't think he's going to be able to get down Armen Petrosyan very easily. He hasn't fought in 9 months either, so a little bit of time off for Rodolfo Vieira. Lost to Chris Curtis pretty convincingly. He also lost to Anthony Hernandez, which these guys aren't really bad losses in the UFC. But he's not really beating guys who are that good. Like, he beat Cody Brundage. Okay, Cody Brundage. He beat Dustin Stoltzfus. Okay, whatever. Like, he's not really beating guys who are that amazing in the UFC. Sorry, I'm burping a little bit. But he's not really beating guys who are that good in the UFC. Whereas Petrosyan, he's beating prospects. He beat AJ Dobson, who is, I think, a good fighter. He lost to Kyle Baralho convincingly, but it wasn't a terrible performance from Armen Petrosyan. Like, he seemed competitive in that fight. And Baralho was having issues every now and then with the takedowns. But overall, I think that he did show that he is on the next step to improving his takedown defense. And I think Rodolfo Vieira just doesn't have the athleticism and the takedown offense to really get down Petrosyan like Kyle Baralho was able to. So I'm taking Armen Petrosyan probably by decision. He might get a third round finish, honestly. Actually, I'm changing that. I'm taking Petrosyan by third round finish. I think he'll stuff the takedowns. Vieira will gas in the third round, and then we're going to see Petrosyan go for it and get a third round TKO finish against the cage, probably. But moving on up the card, we have Michael Johnson versus Darrius Flowers. Now, this is a typical Michael Johnson fight. Can he win it? For sure. Is he more talented than Darrius Flowers? For sure, but it's Michael Johnson. It's simply just Michael Johnson, and you can't predict this, man. This guy's so unpredictable. He might win, he might lose. Coming off a brutal KO loss to Diego Ferreira. I mean, a really brutal KO loss. This wasn't just your average, like, oh, he got caught and then TKO'd. He got put down bad, like really, really bad. And he's 21-19, bro. Like, his record is so bad. One of the worst records in the UFC. I mean, 21-19 is pretty fucking abysmal. And Darrius Flowers is coming off a loss against Jake Matthews, which is not a bad loss. Like, Jake Matthews isn't, like, a world beater at welterweight, but Jake Matthews is, I think, a decent fighter, and he fought on short notice at 170. I think he's moving back down. He is moving back down to 155, so I think we're going to see a better shaped Darrius Flowers. And I think, like, Flowers isn't amazing. Like, he isn't, like, the best guy you've ever seen, but he does have some good little KOs on his record. I mean, like, he KO'd Tim Hiley, he KO'd Daniel Gadley. Like, he does seem like he has power, and I think on short notice, Darrius Flowers is probably going to get this one done. Michael Johnson, I can't pick him anymore, man. I simply just can't. Like, he is so hit and miss, and I don't trust him to not get chinned by a guy who does have power. He's moving back down in weight. Flowers is a lot younger, almost a decade younger than Michael Johnson, and Flowers just to me seems like he is going to be able to beat a shoddy Michael Johnson who might have it, who might not have it, and I'm worried about his chin. That's the big thing about this fight. I don't know if Michael Johnson's chin can hold up. It's already pretty iffy, but he just got KO'd so badly. I mean, incredibly badly by Diego Ferreira, who doesn't have a ton of power. Who isn't known for one punch KO power? I just don't trust Michael Johnson. I'm taking Darrius Flowers by KO. Second round KO for Darrius Flowers here. I think he has at least a little bit of power. I think he has maybe the same or maybe even more power than Diego Ferreira. Might be less, I don't know. But I think if Diego Ferreira is chinning you on the feet, I think Darrius Flowers can do something similar to that. So I'm taking Darrius Flowers to catch Michael Johnson in the second round. Michael Johnson will probably be doing well in the first round and probably be winning the fight, honestly. But I think Darrius Flowers will find that chin and put down Michael Johnson. I'm taking Darrius Flowers again by second round TKO. Moving on up the card, we have Brad Tavares versus Obama. Not literally Obama, it's Gregory Rodrigues. I don't know, this one's a tough one. I think Brad Tavares is a bit more technical than Obama. Sorry, I'm calling him Obama, I don't feel like saying his whole name. But Obama, to me, is pretty good. Like, he's decent. Like, he did get KO'd by Bruno Ferreira, but I don't think Brad Tavares has a ton of power in his hands. He got TKO'd by Bruno Silva. He lost a DDP and actually a really good scrap, if I'm being honest with you. So, I mean, Brad Tavares is not really a bad fighter at all, and he can probably get this one done over Obama or Gregory Rodrigues. But I just think he's younger. Obama is, which is I know it's kind of ironic, but I think he's younger. I think he's better. I think he has more power in the hands. I think he is open more, maybe. And Tavares' chin is pretty good. So this can be a nice little underdog pick if you want to take Tavares here. I think at this point in their careers, I think Rodrigues has the better wins so far in their past 5 fights. He has more power, in my opinion. I think he can probably maybe knock down Tavares. I don't know. It's kind of an iffy situation here, but I'm taking Rodrigues probably by decision. I think Tavares' chin will be good for this fight, and I think he'll be able to last Rodrigues, but I think we're going to see Obama hurt him at moments and pull this one off by 29-28 decision. Moving on up the card, we have Ihor Potieria versus Robert... Dude, how do you say this fucking name? I don't even know. My bad. Robert Burschek. Robert Burschek. I'm taking Robert Burschek here. Ihor Potieria is not good. Not good at all. I don't think he's really that talented. Lost to Olberg. Lost to Rodolfo Bellato. Lost to Nikolai Nagumiranu. These some hard names to say, man. I don't think Ihor Potieria is really that good at all. I think he is bottom feeder level at middleweight in the UFC. And Burschik is making his UFC debut here. But again, look at his record. He's beating guys by KO pretty consistently. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He at least has a 5 KO streak going on right now. And Poteria's chin isn't the best. It's not solid, and Poteria's last good win in the UFC was against an old man, Shogun Hua, who should have retired a long time ago. So I think Potieria is just, like, he's lucky to even be in the UFC right now. He is so lucky that the UFC fed him Shogun Hua, and I don't see him beating a guy who probably deserves to be in the UFC. I think Burschek deserves to be in the UFC here. I think that he's, has some potential. Again, he's a little bit old, though. He's 33 years of age here, but I think that he has something to offer that could probably beat Potieria. He has power in his hands. What does worry me, though, about Burschek is the fact that it doesn't seem like his wins are the most credible wins. And what I mean by that is that he's fighting guys whose records aren't really the best. Like, he beat a 11-12 guy. He beat a 28-17 guy. He beat a, 7-1 guy, 12-7 guy. Like, he's not really fighting great competition here. So that does worry me, but I think Potieria is also not great competition. And I think that he should be able to get this one done. Robert Burschek by first round KO. Massive KO streak. He's at least doing what he needs to do against these bottom feeder level guys. So Robert Burschek by first round KO. Poteria's cut after this. Moving on up the card, we have Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. I'm taking Dan Ige here. Andre Fili, again, coming in on short notice. I forget who he's replacing exactly, but either way, Andre Fili to me is pretty inconsistent, to be honest with you. He beat Lucas Almeida by KO, sick KO, wicked KO. He also lost to Nathaniel Wood, who is a undersized featherweight. Now, Nathaniel Wood is actually really good. Like, I think he's actually a good prospect in the UFC, but Nathaniel Wood is, he shouldn't be a featherweight. Like, he just shouldn't be a featherweight, and Andre Fili couldn't take him down. He couldn't outpoint him on the feet either, and he arguably lost to Bill Aljo. So he's arguably on, a one-fight win streak, but he's arguably 1-3 in his last 4. Andre Fili's good. Like, I think he's decent, but I think Dan Ige is, like, he has power. He's good takedown defense. I know he lost to Bryce Mitchell, but that was by close decision. Dan Ige just has a little bit more in the tank for me. Fili on short notice might be gassing out sooner than usual. But I do want Andre Fili to win. I like his personality more. I like his fight style more. We have a similar interest, if you know what I mean. Latinas. All I'm saying here is that me and Andre Fili have something in common. And I like being able to relate to the fighters, man. I like being able to agree on something. Hopefully one day down the line I get him for an interview, maybe, like, I don't know, maybe when 20 years from now when he's retired and I'm like 50 years old and my channel finally takes off. I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. But I'm taking I'm taking Dan Ige. Sorry, Dan Ige by decision. I think he'll be able to outpoint Andre Fili on the feet. Yeah, that's really about it. Just be able to outpoint Andre Fili. I think his striking's better, and that's really about it. But moving on up the card to the main event, Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. Be like Joe Pyfer. I'm taking Joe Pyfer to get this one done by KO in the second round. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because Jack Hermansson is pretty good on the back foot. I can see Joe Pyfer being the one trying to back up Hermansson, putting him on the back foot, but Jack Hermansson, it seems like he's more comfortable being on the back foot now and going for leg kicks. And Joe Pyfer, even though he did beat Abdul Razak Al Hassan was able to land good leg kicks on Joe Pyfer. So that is something that Jack Hermansson maybe can take advantage of in this matchup. But Joe Pyfer hits like a truck. His nickname is Body Bags. He beat Ngannou's punching record on that whatever arcade game machine. Pyfer has potential. He has, I mean, really good offensive wrestling. He has wicked fast athletic takedowns. Pyfer is a complete prospect in my opinion. And Jack Hermansson at this point in his career, he's getting old. He's not as fast twitchy. He is, it's kind of the same thing, my bad, but you know what I mean. He's just getting old and the age is showing just a little bit. And Jack Hermansson coming off a loss to Delidzie, which he was winning that fight, but he decided to go to the ground with Delidzie and get submitted like an idiot. But I just don't trust Jack Hermansson to get takedowns on Joe Pyfer, who has good wrestling. He's young also, 27 years of age, getting into his prime of his career, coming up soon. Pyfer right now is just a complete prospect, and I think he should be able to get this one over Jack Hermansson, who is, you know, that's all I can really say. He's just, you know, that's really about it about Hermansson. Like, Hermansson's good. Like, he beat Chris Curtis. He also beat Edmund Shabazian, but those guys are kind of not as talented as Joe Pyfer. So I will be officially taking Joe Pyfer to get this one done by KO, overhand right, on the button, putting down Jack Hermansson, out cold, flatlined by, I'm going first round. First round. Hopefully this will be a quick card. Hopefully we get a lot of first round finishes here. But hopefully this will be a quick fight and we can get out of here early maybe. But Joe Pyfer, I think, is talented. He should win this and he should be able to KO Jack Hermansson by first round KO. That's it, guys. That's the whole entire card. Thank you guys for watching this video up to this point. It's been a long video. I've currently been recording this for 41.5 minutes. So we'll see how long this video ends up being. But yeah, again, if you want to join the Topology group, link in the description down below. Join that. You can see my full card predictions so you don't have to come back and watch the video every single time. Yeah, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. I'm out of here, guys. Peace. Follow me on Twitter at Kindle, KYND1E.